Hey guys, West Coast Picks here, and today is going to be the first video in a series of how I do these figured wood handles. If I get my camera to cooperate here. This is stabilized wood. Excuse me. Different types of pattern. I believe this one's a flame maple. This one's a burl. And stabilized just means that they've been soaked in a resin, and they're closer to plastic than wood now. The resin soaks up into all the grains, and once it cures, it turns into, well, like a resin. It's almost like a plastic. So it stabilizes the wood. These are pen blanks. This isn't stabilized, this piece, but it's got an interesting grain. This is zebra wood. But so I get these as pen blanks from a local hardware store. It's Lee Valley Hardware. You can probably get them online. I'm not sure what they're called, but people spin them on their lathe into pens, and they must be pretty nice looking pens because it's nice wood. With the stabilized wood, you don't have to do anything other than sand it and buff it after you've sanded it, just right over to the buffer, and you get that mirror finish, no problem. Both of these, just sand and buff, it's all it was. With unstabilized wood, you're gonna have to seal it and probably lacquer it and all that stuff, so it's up to you which route you want to go. This stuff's more expensive but looks a lot nicer. But anyway, you start off with a pen blank like this, which is roughly a 1x1 by about 6 inches kind of thing, and then with mine, the way it works out for me depends on what you get, but I ended up cutting them in half and then ripping them into strips, pretty much as thin as I can get them on the bandsaw. Not as thin as I can get them, but it's, what's that, inch and a half, or sorry, millimeter and a half, something like that. And then you basically take a bit of sandpaper and face, these are essentially called them plates or scales from now on, and I face them with sandpaper on either side just to bring the grain out. And I've already done that with these, but just to get it down so you can see what the grain is going to look like before you start, because you're going to pick the best spots on these, which for this one I'm going to think it's this side at the top. I like the dark stuff, so I'll probably have the top right there, and on this one probably there. It looks pretty complicated, so it'll probably be like that, or actually like that. Yeah, so those will be the outsides, and then I'll just flip them over. You have your this is a blank, no-handled Sparrows European style pick, so it's a slim one. Matches this one. I'm making a set of 3, so this is a medium hook. No, sorry, that's a short hook. That's at Bogota, and the one I've got curing right now is a medium hook. And so essentially what I'll do is after I've got my plates here, they're just roughly sanded on both sides because I was just looking for a good profile, but I leave the rough sanding on the side I'm going to glue, or epoxy, sorry. And then I'll take my pick blank. This one is Sparrows, but you can also use Peterson. This one here is a Peterson, and or whatever pick blanks you can get. And then I'll take a file to it and I'll just rough up this handle because it's very, very smooth right now, and epoxy doesn't like to stick to smooth things. So if you just go along, hit it up with your file, make it raspy, And all you're really doing is giving it little crevices for the epoxy to stick into and grab onto. And this just gives strength to the bond. You're not going to be flexing these picks that much anyway. Okay, so if you're flexing it to the point where you're breaking the handles off, you're doing something wrong. Anyway, put that file away. And you can see from before it was smooth and now it's got nice sharp file marks all over it. And all that's going to do is help the epoxy set. Give it something to grab onto. And then take your epoxy. This is just from the dollar store. You can use literally anything. I got this stuff from the dollar store. It's $1. So just get some scrap baggie around here. And pour out some of this epoxy. So a good trick with this is just pull the tubes back a little bit, get some air in there, just so it's not liquid right to the end when you put the cap on. Makes a lot less mess and tends to stop the ends from sealing up on these things. And you can use, what am I going to use to stir this up? Well, let's use an end piece off one of the other ones. And what I should have done first is actually snapped off the parts I'm not using here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now before that epoxy sets. Should have known. All I'm doing is pretty much cutting these to size here. Don't be afraid to leave a little extra. And this stuff is, that epoxy is 5 to 10 minute epoxy after you stir it. So I haven't even stirred it yet, so it's not really setting off. And probably won't fully set off until I mix it. This foam is a little dicey. So all I do, instead of filing it or sawing it, I just file it deep, bring it to an edge, and break it off. I was back with a file like this just in case. You never know, it might want to break funny or something, and that way it won't. So maybe my cuts on the inside and on the outside. That's the outside, and that is the outside. So now I'll mix up that epoxy. Still plenty pliable because I haven't mixed it yet, and you can tell after you mix it, it starts to turn frosty. So it's easy to tell when it's ready to go. And I just slap it on here. And you just want a nice thin layer. Essentially, you're going to clamp these together for a good, 15-20 minutes or something after. And any excess epoxy you have in here is going to be squeezed out anyway. So don't go too thick. And as you're spreading this on, it's making the wood grain come out. It's almost like wetting it or oiling it, and you can actually start to see what the wood is going to look like when it's done. But pay no attention to that now, because it's actually going to look a lot nicer than that in the end. And a lot of people make the mistake of working too fast with this stuff and messing up. It says 5 to 10 minutes. You got it at least 5 to 10 minutes when you're working with this stuff. I can confidently let it sit here and cure on that one piece while I work with this other, and not have to worry about it drying. It takes longer than that. So, as you see, I've got a good slathered layer there. And now, it's just a matter of placing your pick properly. You want it close to center, as close to center as you can get it. But you want to make sure that you place the top of the pick handle close to the top of the wood, because that is the hardest place to file and not screw up the pick. So, sorry guys, get my arm in the way there. So, there we go. And this one's been on here for a while, so I can take at least one of those off. Move it to the center. And then clamp it. You can use whatever you want. I use these little bulldog clips. They seem to work pretty good. You're just going to have to be careful when you clamp it. It tends to move around in there. So as you see, when I clamped it, all the excess just came out the top there. So you just take your whatever you're using, toothpick or stick, but you can see how much actually came back out of there. That's just on one side. Now that we've clamped it, it won't slide as much anymore. So you can release it, clean it up a little bit. Another good whack off of there. Whack off. And then, unfortunately, you're going to have to get your fingers a little epoxy. But, no biggie. Make sure they're kind of straight. Make sure that the metal is actually inside encased in all of the wood and not sticking out proud anywhere. Because, that'll hurt you when you go to finish it. And everything looks good. Throw the clamp back on. Making sure it doesn't walk. It hasn't. It's filled with epoxy everywhere. And we're good, guys. You let this sit. It says 10 minutes, but I let these set at least for a good hour, maybe even 2 before you start working them. And that will be part 2. So keep your eyes up for that one, guys. Later.